come to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Present.
Karen Harbaugh.
Present.
Jessica McLeod.
Present.
Susan Nicholson. Present. Luann Santos. Jane Pesh.
Present.
Neil Perry.
Present. And let us note that the microphones are all working. All right, may I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Pesh, seconded by Member DiSoglio. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it unanimously. Thank you very much for the good start. Madam Superintendent, will you please introduce our student for tonight's flag salute?
Sure. I'd like to first call up Suzanne Lamoureux, our associate principal at the Timony Grammar School, and Anthony from grade 4 at the Timony to join her tonight. Come right over here so everyone can see you. So I am very proud to introduce Anthony Azzi to lead the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Anthony has attended the Timony Grammar School since pre-K and is currently a 4th grade student in Miss Tully's class, and Miss Tully is here as well. His favorite subject is math, and he especially likes recess time because the 4th graders get to use the upper school playground equipment. When asked about Anthony as a student, Miss Tully had the following wonderful words to share. Anthony is an awesome boy who loves cars and can tell you everything about them too. He's willing to put great effort into his schoolwork, even when it's hard. He recently became a big brother, and he is so proud of that role. I've had the pleasure of being Anthony's teacher for a second time, and it has been great to see his growth over the past 2 years. He lives with his mom and dad, Elian and William, his grandmother and grandfather, and his baby brother Noah, whom he absolutely adores and has been entertaining us a little this evening. Anthony is excited about entering upper school next year, especially because he will get to see his grandmother, Tracy Dunbar, working in the office every day. In his free time, Anthony enjoys running around and playing on a swing set. He's also interested in possibly playing soccer in a rec league. And when he grows up, Anthony wants to be a police officer for the city of Methuen so he can help and protect people. It is a pleasure to have Anthony represent our school in leading the pledge this evening. Hold it right here. Ready? Hand across your heart. 1, 2, 3.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fabulous. Nice job, buddy. Yeah, it looks Italian. I like it. Is it cashmere or silk? Yes. Yeah. Anything. Very pretty. Yeah, thank you. That's another day.
It's a cute little name too, Noah.
Superintendent, can you please introduce our Soar Award recipients?
Yes, I'd like to ask Lisa Golubsky-Toomey to join us, and Lauren Chenna, come on up on this side for the English Department Soar Award tonight.
Good evening. On behalf of the English Department, it's our pleasure to present Lauren Chenna with the Soar Award for this school year. Lauren Chenna is an outstanding student who has excelled in all of her English courses at Methuen High School. Currently ranked 14th in the senior class with an impressive 4.548 GPA, Lauren is also a College Board AP Scholar, having earned passing scores on the AP English Language and Composition exam, the AP Psychology exam, and the AP Biology exam. This year, Lauren is enrolled in 3 English courses: AP English Literature and Composition, Honors Journalism, and Honors Creative Writing. Lauren's schedule also includes rigorous courses such as AP Calculus AB, AP Statistics, and Honors Anatomy and Physiology. Lauren's English teachers praise her intellect and character. Mrs. O'Sullivan states that Lauren is a quiet leader with a maturity that shines through in her thoughtful commentary and insightful writing. Mr. Jennings notes that in every interaction with her classmates and teachers, Lauren exudes empathy, kindness, and patience. She cares not only for doing her best, but also drawing out the best in others. Lauren has consistently proved herself to be a young reader who clearly loves gleaning big truths from books. So we English teachers hope that the literature we've shared with her somehow has made her life richer. It's the least we can do for Lauren, given how she has enriched our classrooms. As a leader of her peers, Lauren is the historian of the Methuen chapter of the National Honor Society, MHS Student Council President, and the MPS School Committee Student Representative. Lauren is also a member of the varsity cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track teams, the Science National Honor Society, SAD, Students Helping Others, and the Blue and White. In addition to holding part-time jobs at JG's and Crumble Cookies, Lauren also volunteers her time to coach Pop Warner cheerleading. Aspiring to become a journalist, Lauren plans to major in English or communications and hopes to attend High Point University. Congratulations, Lauren.
I'd just like to thank my parents for always being there for me whenever I need them and for always pushing me to do my best, even when I get stressed or when I think I can't do it. And for my siblings who always support me, even if I can be a pain in the butt sometimes with all the amounts of times that I talk about school. They help me and they let me talk about it as much as I want. And they're the best, and I couldn't have done any of the things I've done in high school without any of them. Thank you.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Get my smile? Yeah. I used to say cheese, but nobody smiles.
I'll keep going. Yes. So I'd like to invite Mr. Harb, the Science Department Chair, and Emma Kwong to the stage. Where'd you go? Oh. Right here, honey.
Good evening, members of the school committee. The Science Department proudly announces Emma Kwong as this year's Science Soar Award winner. The recipient of the prestigious RPI medal as a junior, Emma has excelled in honors and advanced placement science courses for 4 years at Methuen High School. Currently ranked #1 in the senior class, Emma earned qualifying scores on the AP Biology, Chemistry, English Language, and statistics examinations. Emma has an excellent work ethic. When you speak with Emma, she's almost always smiling, and you get the sense that she's completely focused on the conversation. She's very grateful for all of her opportunities and for everyone that's had a great influence in her life, especially her family, friends, and teachers. I know that if you asked her teachers or coaches, they would speak not only to her talents, both in and out of the classroom, but also to her integrity and humility. While already recognized as an AP scholar for achievement on past AP exams, Emma continues to challenge herself in her senior year and is taking 5 advanced placement courses, including AP Calculus BC, Literature, Psychology, Physics, and Environmental Science. She is a leader in our school community and is the president of both the Science National Honor Society and the Science Club. A well-rounded student, Emma is a 4-year starter for the Methuen High School varsity soccer team and has been working diligently at her internship at Physical Sciences Incorporated in Andover, Mass. For her science project this year, Emma has taken on the challenging engineering task of creating a star tracker camera mount, which is a platform that rotates opposite the spin of the Earth, effectively holding the stars still for long exposure astrophotography. To create her project, Emma has worked with physics teacher Mr. Peter Harris and has designed custom 3D printed parts, operated shop tools for woodworking, and programmed an Arduino, which is a microcontroller, to drive a stepper motor. Her favorite subject is biology, and she plans to pursue a rigorous pre-med program in college. Her top choices include Northwestern, University of Virginia, RPI, University of Michigan, and William and Mary. We wish Emma the best of luck, and we want to congratulate Emma this evening.
Wow.
Great job.
I would first like to say how grateful I am to be receiving this award tonight. I do understand how difficult it has been this past year. On that note, I would like to thank my parents for always supporting and encouraging me to explore my passions. I would also like to thank my teachers, especially Mr. Harris, for giving me the ability to maximize my potential in science. Staying after school every day to work on my science project has been the highlight of my high school career. Thank you.
Wow.
Good, congratulations.
Okay. Can the Student Advisory Council please approach the podium and update the committee on high school events, please?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Patel, and I'm a junior at Methuen High. I'm here to talk about the recent college representatives visiting Methuen High during the lunches in school. All Methuen High School students are able to go up to college booths during their lunch block. Methuen High is hosting 2 colleges each day from Mondays to Thursdays. It started from the beginning of October 4th and will go through December. The people at the booth are college admission representatives that will answer any questions for the students that may be interested in their college. The college representatives provide more information to students who can also check out the application process. Some of the colleges that have visited in the past week have been Plymouth State University, the University of New Hampshire, and Suffolk University. Some colleges that are visiting MHS soon are St. Anselm College, Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and University of Massachusetts. Students don't have to sign up to meet with the colleges. They can simply stop by the booth during their lunch break. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Kendall, and I'm a junior here at Methuen High. Today I'll be speaking about some Jrotc Awards handed out last month. On September 29th, 4 members of the academic team were awarded for their teamwork, learning, and development skills. These awards were given to sophomore Ella Murphy, juniors Katrina Wong and Nathaniel Hashem, and finally, senior Patrick Donovan. We are so proud of their achievements. Also, this academic team was further awarded for being one in the final 32 teams in the nation to advance to the final competition. They were up against roughly 3,100 teams and ranked in the top 32. We are so proud of their hard work.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Silver, and I'm a senior here at Methuen High. I'll be speaking a little bit about the Methuen essay contest that was recently held. In September, students at MHS in grades 9 through 12 were asked in their English classes to write an essay about Methuen and the things that make them feel they belong here. The idea was organized by City Councilor Eunice Ziegler for Methuen Day, which was on October 2nd, and was further coordinated by Dr. Golubsky and Principal Barden. Essays were then selected and sent to the city's judging panel, where 9 winners were selected. Congratulations to the winners, Jack Magnan, Ella Benson, Kiara Lise Castro, Masa Naeem, Adam Shaheen, Maria Sanchez Garcia, Leah Dominguez, Dariel Garcia, and Michael Holleran.
Lauren, do you have anything to update the committee on?
I don't have anything to say other than what our representatives went over. I think they pretty much covered everything we were looking to say. They did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Okay. Has anybody signed up for public participation? No? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to participate? He said knowledgeably. And he says no. Okay, so at this time, we will close the public participation part of the meeting. Thank you very much. And move on to the approval of the minutes. There's no approval of the minutes. Superintendent, do you have any updates for the committee?
Hi. So the only update I have is we are still moving and working with CIC Health to make sure that we have the test and stay up and running. We are closer. We're going to be doing some test runs with staff from our new vendor this week. So Mary Gallant will be meeting with them in the next 2 days to see the spaces, make sure we have the equipment that they need. So I am hopeful that we will be up and running within the next week, 2, but we will be doing some test runs this week to make sure that the staff know the schedule, where to go, that we have all the equipment and the testing kits. So very hopeful, moving in the right direction. We are getting support from both the state and CIC at this point.
On my way over here, I didn't get, and this may be entirely wrong, I did hear a news article saying that the governor had activated additional National Guard members, and some of it was related to helping the schools with the test and stay program. Did we get any feedback on that? No.
No.
Okay.
So right now, we're working with Healthcare IT. It's a different vendor.
Yeah.
So they switch vendors for us.
Right.
I don't think that any of those folks are National Guard members. I know we've been running Corey's and Soary's and fingerprinting for all the staff that they're bringing forward to us. So I don't think that we are one of the districts that are seeing those folks come on in.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Moving on, Superintendent, can you update the committee on enrollment numbers, please?
Yeah, so in your packet, you have page 6, 7, and 8, I believe. We printed the enrollment for October 1st, so you could see this is going to be the number that is submitted to the state for funding. Mr. Lucier also added in, just so you could compare, our October 1st enrollments for 2020, and then our October enrollments for 21. So as you can see, we are a few over where we were for 20, but we are still hundreds under where we were for 19. So I believe in 19 we were just above 7,000. Yep, 7,022 we had as an October 1st enrollment. So we're still down about 360 students at this point from that enrollment. So I don't
Any
know if anybody has
questions on that?
questions.
Member DiZoglio.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in regards to funding, you said there's 160, correct, down?
300. So right now we're at 6640. That's what we've submitted to the state for October 1st enrollment.
So how much of an impact that's going to do on funding?
It's going to be similar to last year, but I can't say that right now what the funding formula is going to be.
Okay.
I will also say, and I apologize, Member DiZoglio, I should say this, the one thing that we have seen is that although our regular enrollment has not, we haven't made up that difference from where we were in 2019-20, we have seen a very large increase in our L enrollment. So although our enrollment is lower, our L enrollment is actually higher. We're at a higher percentage now than we were last year with our L enrollment. So that's, we might be bringing that back up at a future school committee meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on enrollment numbers? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. There is no old business or pending matters, so we'll move on to new business. I need a motion to approve the Unit D, Methuen Educational Secretary's contract.
So moved.
Moved by Member McLeod, seconded by Member DiZoglio. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'm gonna go to Doty. Can we go to roll call vote on this, please?
Ryan DiZoglio,
Yes.
Karen Paul,
Yes.
Jessica McLeod,
Yes.
Susan Nicholson. Yes. Luann Santos, Jane Zani Pesh,
Yes.
and Danielle Perry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent, can you please start the conversation on ESSER 3 funding? I had to look at my
Yes.
numbers.
Would you mind passing that out? So Mr. Goslin's going to pass out a draft spending plan that we've put together that we want to present and have a conversation about this evening. We did get an extension for the ESSER to be submitted to DESE till next week. It was actually due October 4th. But we had just passed out this community survey when school returned back in session, and we needed this opportunity to have this open discussion with all of you and the public about our findings. So you can see there that the allocation amount for ESSER 3 for us is $11,594,304, and 20% of that automatically has to be reserved for academic programming. So much like we saw last summer with the acceleration academies and the summer programming and the vacation academies that we did, that money will be earmarked for those types of programming. So one of the things that I probably isn't a surprise to this committee, but when we sent out the community survey on the what we could use the funds for, because it has to be COVID related. These are typically one-time purchases because the money will expire in 2024. So the two top categories for all members of the community, we sent it to all parents, staff, elected officials in the community, and it was overwhelming. The air quality infrastructure came out on top as a priority, that we should be looking at the school buildings and seeing what's happening in those systems. And then also space, that we need to figure out, keep class sizes low, and then figure out space, which is also going to be part of our conversation tonight. So you'll see those on here. We also have, I believe, and Mr. Noble can help me out here. But there is this amount of money not designated as a percent, but some of the money is supposed to be spent on technology as well, I believe, and we have that in there. You'll see the technology infrastructure. So one of the things that we did last year was we used some of the funds to buy teacher Chromebooks because they needed them when they were at home. We have repurposed those Chromebooks to actually be in the hands of kindergartners. So it's a consistent cycle of how we make sure that we have Chromebooks in the hands of all of our students and staff, and they're always up to date. So that's something that's also in there. One of the big conversations that we had at the district level, we've had them here, but not quite as focused here. You'll see there the traffic mitigation efforts. That is another, again, just another conversation we've had. I know that since we have redirected people into different, we've completely revamped where the main office is at the Timony Grammar School, and it's working out fantastic. You know, a lot of those were to streamline where people are entering the buildings, how they're entering the buildings, making sure that people aren't entering the buildings, and then being able to just, you know, walk around freely so we know who's in the buildings at all time. We've talked for years now about the high school here, the bus loop area, and accessible parking for the field house and the ice rink, and that island in the middle, you know, and what that could actually bring if we did that area. So those were some of the projects that we also talked about that would be eligible under these funds. The air quality improvements, the way we would sort of move forward with that is to actually hire a company that would come into all 5 school buildings to assess the air quality and the infrastructure. So it's not necessarily the air quality like the tests we had last year, but it's the infrastructure, right? So we know that our buildings can be dysregulated sometimes, and so we want to be able to regulate that. And how best to do that in each of the 5 buildings. Each of the 5 buildings has a different system, which also causes its own, you know, struggles in the district when we're trying to fix and regulate heating and cooling systems. So that is something that is high on our priority list for this. Instructional materials, that's another cost. We are moving forward with our literacy goals. And coming with that is some need for some very specific materials and curriculum resources, which we've already started talking about what those should be. Those are also can be one-time costs, so we wanted to make sure those were on here as well. On the backside, the summer vacation and after-school programming is what we said, we have to earmark at least that amount of money for, with this amount of money over the course of the next 3 summers, right? 2 summers and vacations, I think, right? 22, 23, 24, no, so it's 3 summers, sorry. So 3 summers, and the school vacation weeks, which we found those to be very successful this summer. And over the vacation weeks, primarily at the high school took advantage of the vacation week time, and it was, Mr. Barden said it was incredibly successful. And the kids came in person for that. We do think that it's important to have somebody who can manage these funds for us because there's a whole host of compliance issues that go with this kind of contracting. Number one, because you're talking about making sure that we're following the bidding process, working with architects and contractors for a variety of projects. So that is something that we would want to put in there so somebody could just focus on this. And then the last one, which is probably the biggest conversation, is the increased learning space. So again, this isn't a new conversation for this group, but this is the time that we really need to think about acting on this. We've been in conversation with the city, our CAFO and the mayor about this particular idea. I want to make it really clear to people too who might be watching, because it sounds interesting when I say that we're down 350 students, but we're running out of space, right? So I want to just make it clear and why that's happening. So one thing, again, that we were super fortunate to be able to do this year is actually have class sizes in a decent place. And when I say decent, you know, we're already creeping up in places, right? Pockets, we always going to have pockets of higher class sizes, which we do in the district. We do have some grade levels in some schools that are already at 23, 24, and 25. But we are in most places around 20 and less, which is what we want in this district to be able to succeed and be able to focus on our students' academic and social achievement. So the one thing that we have seen that I know you have heard from me time and time again is we're getting an increase of student service delivery, so the needs of students. So with the increase of Ls in Methuen comes an increase in staff because there's a requirement of delivery of instruction. And so where did those staff exist in a school and where do they service our kids is where we are finding some serious struggles, right? Our special education staff, our L staff, our specialist teachers in several of our schools are already traveling because we've made as many, you know, homeroom classrooms as we can within the right wings of the building and the right floors. And we are currently at a place where if I asked a principal, hey, do you need another teacher? We don't know where we're going to put people at this point. So we're and right now we have turned the media centers into learning spaces. So those are being used by our media teachers. Those are being used by our reading specialists for pullout groups. They're being used by our Spanish teacher in the upper school, and some schools are using that space as classroom space. So we are really at, we're maximized at this point about how many adult spaces, student spaces we have in our buildings in the grammar schools. And so we are looking and in conversations right now, very preliminary conversations regarding 9 Branch Street, which is where Crest was before they moved and bought 20 Shattuck Road to rebuild Crest Collaborative. They are currently leasing the building, so we're investigating and inquiring about the purchase of that particular building. And that is 100% joint between the city would have to purchase that for the purpose of the use of a school. So that's what we've been talking with the mayor and the CAFO about the last few weeks to see appropriate use of our money, which we have gotten confirmation that this would be an appropriate use because we are trying to keep classes smaller, and we're pushing our buildings to the limit at this point, our 4 grammar schools. And keep in mind, the CGS was not made for more than 1,000 students. It wasn't built for many more students. So it is the smallest school, but it was built to be the smallest school. So its size is actually much different. It doesn't have the classroom spaces that the Timony, Tenney, and the Marsh have. So it's a different kind of configuration. So we also have to keep that in mind. So one of the ideas that we put here to put out there is if we were able to acquire that real estate, which again is in preliminary conversations, right? This is something that we're just exploring at this point. Our hope, the district's hope would be that we would be able to move all of our preschools and into that building, which means removing 15 classes from our grammar schools, which would be significant for us, and also part of central administration. That would allow us space at the current central building for an alternative high school, which we have on the Student Opportunity Act plan, which we still need. The need for that has absolutely not gone away. And then also potentially moving the Adult Learning Center also to the Central Administration Building. Because the building, if you haven't been to the current Adult Learning Center, it's not quite large enough for what they do, and it's not in a really convenient location, and it doesn't have any parking for the students. So it's just it's a difficult building for them. So that's the idea that we are sort of sharing with all of you tonight, that we have again discussed with Maggie and the mayor. So basically we're looking for tonight discussion, questions, comfort moving forward. We do have to submit our grant to DESE at some point here next week. So, we would like to have that conversation tonight. And I said a lot. Did I miss anything, Mr. Noble or Mr. Goslin?
Member Pesh?
Thanks. I do wish I received this in the packet, so bear with me because I kind of have notes everywhere while you were talking and reading through it. Are these numbers, first of all, based on actual numbers, or are they arbitrarily just earmarking, a general amount for each line item? General amount. Okay. Now, the year of remote, the educational technology and infrastructure, I remember the numbers for Chromebooks being high. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. The 750 that's earmarked, would that be a new Chromebook for every teacher and every student, or is that replacing old ones?
Yeah, that's like a so that would be more of a replacement system. So we'd be looking to earmark for teacher Chromebooks for sure. So if you recall, and Ed's still here, yes. Ed's still here, so he can speak to this. But we do have a system of leases, right? Because that is more financially or fiscally responsible. So we don't want to lose that pattern as well for a lot of our leases at the grammar schools. We want to maintain that pattern because we will have to turn those over, right? So these would be a one-time purchase. So we have to be very careful about which ones we're one-time purchasing, right? So it would be Ed looking at particular grade levels that have the oldest, or the ones that we have one-time purchased already, because we did have to one-time purchase some of those Chromebooks last year during the pandemic.
The lease ones that we did, though, however many years back, we did the purchase for $1 at the end of the lease, didn't we? Don't we usually have that option?
Yes, but unfortunately with Chromebooks, they don't last longer than 4 years. So
So they
when the
don't
lease
do it.
expires, they really need to be taken out of circulation.
Which is why they give it to us for $1.
Correct.
That's right, right. And we do find some uses for them. I mean, there are some, but not many,
So right now, though, every student and every teacher in the district has a Chromebook.
No, that's
No.
not right. So we didn't have the resources to provide them to teachers. So the staff at the high school have their iPads. I'm sorry. The teachers at the grammar schools did not get Chromebooks this year.
So this would allow for them to at least have their
Yes,
Chromebooks?
yes.
And would that be in year one? Is that a year one thing?
Yeah, I mean, some of this would be looking at what we have and adjusting. If 8th grade graduates have Chromebooks that are good enough for 6th grade, we kind of play that game of where they need it and what makes most sense so that we can get into that routine like we have here at the high school,
Yeah.
where we're seeing it through for 4 grades and then graduating them.
Now, also under technology, I have to ask, because we know we've had some problems with our meetings. And we know, I've heard words like modulator and whatever thrown out. Would that be something that we could use these particular monies for?
Is it? Yes.
That
would be nice.
So I just looked at Mr. Lucier because we didn't actually have that conversation, but I think it would, because we are trying to air this, and it keeps causing us problems to air this so that we don't have as many people that are physically here.
Yeah.
So that more people can view it from home in a safe manner. So we absolutely could talk about that being there.
Okay. The project manager, that particular, is it a position, or is it like outsourcing for someone to oversee all that stuff? Or would that be an actual employee that we'd be hiring that would only be a 3-year contract?
So probably the latter, because this is a finite amount. Like, this work has to get done, and it ends in 2024.
It's not like an ongoing position.
No, because we would use it for this purpose, right, under these monies, to make sure that the compliance, it's one thing right now, Mr. Noble and Mr. Lucier and Mr. Goslin have been really managing ESSER 1, and we have ESSER 2 pretty well managed with the amount of money. This is a whole nother level, simply because you're talking about $1 million bids.
Sure.
At this, right? You're talking about contracted services that are going to be a whole different set of, municipal laws and procedures and protocols that I just think we're still trying to run the district. So I just think that was our conversation about that we're getting into with any of these projects. With the air quality, again, you're talking about $1 million projects. And obviously, if there's any kind of real estate transactions, we're talking about, time and money for attorneys and everything else. So there needs to be somebody who we know is watching this, knows this, and can make sure that everything's done according to the city and the school rules, basically. Right. So yeah, this is a finite it was kind, we had a project manager for the high school when the high school
no,
was
that
being
makes
built.
sense.
Same idea, right? Arthur Nicholson served in that role when the high school was being built. And that was a very particular, very important role because we knew that somebody was always working with the contractors and the technology and everything that went into the project.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and that goes back to my first question too, because where we don't have actual estimates, it makes me a little nervous, right? We're doing our best to earmark
Right.
here or there, but like, what happens if we only have, let's say, $1 million or 500,000 left for the increased learning space at the end? Or on the flip side, what happens to the leftover? Is this something we absolutely have to spend every penny of, or we lose?
Yes.
So that's
That's a yes.
super, so that position,
That's a
position
yes.
in itself, like, I hope when we hire whomever we hire, that that's also made clear, because we want to take advantage,
Right.
obviously, of these
If I
monies.
could, so the other part of that is, if it's procurement related, so I want to be careful. So we cross into procurement, now you're kind of crossing into my neighborhood,
Right.
right? And so project manager is one thing, procurement manager, so we definitely need more procurement in the city, but I am not a fan of replicating it in different places.
Yep.
Right, so we definitely need more procurement, and I'm okay with the plan, but let's just be careful, right? Because the procurement should all be done, if it's multi-million-dollar procurements, Chapter 30B, that should all be going in one place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
And
don't
so-
think we didn't have an intention of this person doing the procurement, more of the compliance,
Just
making
when
sure
the
things are
discussion
getting
came
done.
to procurement, I got a
Yeah.
little nervous.
Yep.
If you're talking project management,
Mhm.
I'm Huckleberry. If you're talking procurement, then
Yeah.
we gotta talk about it. And before I lose my wind, I'll come back to you. So on the technology side, I think one of the things I'm gonna keep inserting here is that we're moving like hell on the city side to move towards a combined infrastructure. And so I don't want the schools, working in abeyance of that. That's gonna, every night I hear Sean Cronin's voice whispering in my ear, the Collins Center, that these should be combined. The information technology for the city and schools should be a piece together, and I don't care who owns them and where they're owned, and I said that categorically to you, right? But we've got to have one strategy right there, right? And we're moving towards that, so I just want to make sure that, as we start piling up hardware and infrastructure, we're still thinking about, and by the way, I say the same thing when people come to me for software on the city side, right? Hey, hold off, because we got to take a look at, right? So.
That makes
Keep
sense.
going.
Yep.
Only a couple more. And to the mayor's point as well, I don't really care from where the procurement's coming, but for this particular individual, we need to make sure whoever's doing that they're working collaboratively just to make sure we, spend everything we can and put it to where it needs to go.
My big push, if I can just
Yeah,
jump in
sure.
there, my big push was life is still gonna go on, right? Schools are still gonna be open, we're still gonna have Bruce running around handling the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
And whether it's somebody as a liaison with procurement, I mean, when you go out to bid with these things, there's a lot of back and forth with his procurement agent at the city. So, yeah, whatever that looks like, it's gonna be time-consuming, and that was the idea behind it.
Okay, and then my last question, because I always ask about this, that building up on Acceleration Academy, I always find that word super misleading. Now, is that the same acceleration that's for struggling students getting caught up, or is that actual accelerated students after school doing whatever?
So the Acceleration Academy is for students who need more support to accelerate to get to the end of the grade level at a faster rate.
So similarly, there was something like that in the budget.
Summer,
The
correct.
word just kind of confuses me.
Yes,
and
you're right. We have two positions at each, the Tenny and the Timony, accelerated K1 and an accelerated 1-2.
But they're not accelerated courses, they're condensed
smaller
courses to
classes.
try to get
Correct.
people up to par.
Yes.
So my only last thing that I will say is, and I say it every time, I really wish there was something in here for actual accelerated courses. Something, if it's possible, because I know a lot of the accelerated courses that they had when I was growing up just aren't there anymore, and unfortunately, state funding doesn't always allow for us to focus on those things, and I really feel saddened that the, average or accelerated student can't be more challenged through some monies that we'd receive through, this particular funding if it was possible. And that's it. I'm good, Mayor.
Thank you. Member Hallbauer.
Thank you. I'm glad we still have our sights on that alternative high school. Did we say that was going to be that'll be a day program?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll bridge. It'll have a more flexible schedule than the day program,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Happy we're still thinking about
Might be a
that.
9 to 5 school, not right, depending on kids' schedule. The whole point of that alternative high school, how we presented it, was that some kids are going to need school in the morning to be able to do what they have to do in the afternoon. Some schools need it, some kids are going to need it later in the day. So we modeled our proposal after what Chelsea High School just put in place. So our team went to go visit when we put our plan forward to all of you. But yeah, we need it more.
Thank you.
Member Nicholson?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to see the depth and breadth of the work that you and your leadership team have done to bring this information to us. But I have a question about the summer program of 2021. And as I read through this, you're going to build on, or you plan to build upon, the program that we had this past summer. So do we have some data to use? Do you have some data that you used to project how successful it was? And I know we were in new territory for a lot of the work that was done, but are we moving forward with the understanding that's based on concrete data of improvement for our students?
That's a great question. So we will have that data before we roll anything further. So we're going to talk at our next meeting about the progress we've made to date on the strategy for district improvement, including the literacy goal. And so we've finished the first round of screening. I think by the time we have two screening data points, we'll have a pretty good sense on whether the kiddos that went through that summer acceleration program have shown more rapid growth than those who didn't. I think that's going to be a good indication of whether that's a viable model. So far what we've got is just anecdotal. So I think once we have 2 data points under our belts, we'll have a really good sense of the impact of that program, whether it did what we set out to do. It is a studied model. It's based on work that was started in Lawrence a number of years ago, and it has been validated by external researchers, and that's why DESE's picked it up and is now pushing it out statewide. This intense 5-day, same kid, same teacher, high teacher pay, laser focus. That's kind of the gist of it, and that's what we won the grant last summer to try out. And so we had 45 or so week-long programs this past summer, testing out that model with state money.
Thank you. So 2 more things. Is this, if I remember correctly, this is a program the state mandated a certain pay for teachers?
Yes.
And we had no control over that?
Yes.
Okay. And then will you be bringing those 2 data points back to us at some point so we can review them with you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll share the first one in our later meeting this month, and then as soon as we have that second one, which will happen in December-ish, we'll come back around and show you 2 points.
Member McLeod?
Thank you. I'm thinking about the early childhood program, which not surprisingly is interesting to me. One of the things that I trust that you would be taking into consideration is the ever expanding nature of preschool. So taking a space that has 15 classrooms for 15 current classrooms will very quickly run into not enough space there. So I certainly trust that you would take that into consideration, but
Yes.
preschool is ever expanding.
Yes.
And so what, at this point in the very early stages of your thinking, does that space provide that gives you comfort and confidence that it's the right place to go?
Hopefully I will speak eloquently enough to this point, because I have seen the space numerous times, not as much as our Director of Student Services, but there are designated spaces for students, and there's some other designated spaces for staff that I don't think we would be utilizing the way that the school had to utilize those spaces. which I think made us kind of excited about the fact that there are these other spaces that, have not been used as classroom spaces, but could be. And so there is room to expand there. And it's a very interesting building with offices and classroom space and a playground already for preschool age kids and a gymnasium as well. That could bring in some funding to be able to support the cost of the building. And it's turnkey. And I think that's the thing that we've struggled with. We have been fortunate. I think we have viewed, I don't know, Mayor, we've gone to 3 or 4 different sites over the past year and a half just to look at spaces to see what they could offer. And one of the things that we struggle the most with is there's no school space in Methuen. Any space that we have seen, we have to remodel, renovate, knock down walls, completely restructure it, figure out how we're going to make this a school space. And I hope that you know, and if you don't, a brand new building project is not going to help me eliminate space in a year. And that's what we're talking about, like when we're busting at the seams here on where we're going to put kids in homerooms. So yeah, I think it has some room to grow, and I would not leave the central office building. I wouldn't move the entire central. I don't think that would be wise, because that would take up probably all the space that 9 Branch Street would have to offer, and I don't think that is the right move, because of the nature of the fact that we had to open a new classroom last year, and then who knows what's coming in this year. So we have thought about all those pieces. And again, the fact that it is turnkey for us is pretty remarkable at this time. But again, we're in the early stages of considering this, talking about it, how we can make this happen. I feel incredibly confident the mayor and the city knows that this is a priority. Whether it's 9 Branch Street or not, this is something that we absolutely have to resolve, because it's either we find a space to be able to move classrooms into, or we're dealing with portable classrooms in our grammar schools. And that in and of itself brings up a whole slew of other issues we're trying to solve, not create. And I think when our team started to talk about that, I'm going to cost it out, because I think that's important for people to see if we move forward with this. But portable classrooms aren't just put them where you want them. They have to be by electric and water, and accessibility is not always easy as well for portable classrooms. So I don't know what other alternative we have, into pursuing something like this.
Thank you. Would you expect that moving 15 classrooms to another space would reduce traffic concerns at the elementary schools, or do you think a couple hundred cars wouldn't make that big of a difference?
So the easy answer is it's not going to make that big of a difference, only because preschool operates on a different time schedule than our lower and upper schools. So the buses and parents arrive for drop-off and pickup at a completely different time. But it would eliminate traffic around the schools, right? Because now they're all filtering to one location, right? All the buses in the city are going to one location for the preschool kids. Parents dropping off and picking up are going to one school.
Just one more clarifying question.
Sure.
Branch Street would be just for kindergarten, just for preschool, not preschool and kindergarten.
Correct. It's definitely not big enough for 2 grades.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Zogel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just have a few questions. I know last year when we were having classrooms outside, especially at the Chenna, that Chromebooks were dying once they stepped outside because of the Wi-Fi.
Right.
Would the $750,000 try to extend the Wi-Fi so classes could go outside?
That didn't come up in our conversations. It wasn't something that that we really considered. For example, the Chenna, most of the tents are close enough to the building. So I do know classes at the Chenna in particular You may not have seen them, but
The one
tucked
on
in the back of the school, there were 2 large tents, the same size as the one that was out front. So they did have Wi-Fi, and I spoke with some teachers who were out there, and the devices worked fine. When you start walking away from the building, like the tent we had at the Marsh and the tent at the front of the Tenny, right, that would take some work, and it wasn't something that we really discussed.
Because a lot of the teachers that I've talked with wanted to maybe go out towards the field to do projects and stuff like that in the future, because they actually enjoyed taking their kids outside, doing science projects, stuff like that. So if for some way with this money we can extend that, so they can use different resources where they could, I don't know, do different types of science projects and be able to have their kids on the Chromebooks. Maybe that's something we can consider working towards extending, especially with the city side trying to connect both Wi-Fis and networks together. I don't know if the mayor has already talked about that, but I think that's a really big conversation that we should start having. Also, the second thing is, if we decide, I don't know the condition of Branch Street, but this air quality improvements, if we were to purchase, would that air quality improvements go toward that building as well? Okay. Do we?
Your microphone.
That is the estimate for the 5 school buildings that exist right now.
Okay. And that wouldn't be, that's not including Central too, so if we were to turn
Correct.
that into alternative school too as well, we would have to get an estimate down the road to see if the improvements need to be done in Central as well, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to prioritize the 5
Yeah, understand.
student teacher buildings.
Okay, thank you.
And I just, 1 or 2 things to add. So
Yeah.
I just want to say for the record, the city clearly understands, after discussions with the superintendent and others, the need for more space. I think the public needs to understand that on the city side, a lot of this is dependent on what we're able to do with the ARPA funds that we
Right.
have too. So there are guidelines and restrictions. So we have talked about this, and we recognize the need, and we talked about, making sure we get this building on our list that's going to go to our compliance team. And if the compliance team says it's eligible for ARPA funding, then it would go to city council to be prioritized, because I was telling the superintendent today, I have $33 million worth of water and sewer projects sitting on my desk, need to be done in the city. So we have $46 million in ARPA funds, and really the question is, how do we best use it? So the city clearly understands the need for additional space. The only thing I would say to the school side is, as I look at the finance sheets coming in tonight, I know we've got a plan for some of it, for teachers and others, that we're still carrying $5 million in ESSER 2 funding on top of the almost $12 million here, right? So we've got to kind of take the whole thing into consideration when we do this, and make sure we do what's best for the schools, what's best for the city, right? And so if that's, the city bellies up to the bar and the city council agrees to buy, and it's compliant to buy a building, then that's what we'll do. I just don't want people hanging their hats saying that's what's gonna happen.
Right.
And the mayor agreed to it, because there's a lot of hurdles here that we've gotta go through, if you follow my drift, right? So, that's my 2 cents. Anything else from the
I
committee?
appreciate that, thank you.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate that, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, this is, that one is a big, a longer hurdle, and there's other people that have to,
But I do, and I say for the record, I
Their
completely
support,
agree
which I
with you on the need for more space,
Yeah,
right?
I appreciate
So we are 100% aligned there, so. Okay, anything else on this?
So
Good
I just-
discussion?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable here moving forward. We'll actually look at, so that there were a couple other ideas to the technology piece that we'll look into, some Wi-Fi stuff, maybe the studio, but we'll make sure all the numbers balance accordingly so that we're not.
Now, once you give it to DESI, what happens? Will there be like this
So-
draft
so the-
plan, you provide to DESI?
Yeah, so this one's working a little bit differently. We checked in with our DESI federal grants person just to get a sense, because I don't think they've ever dealt with this kind of money, and we certainly haven't either. So basically, the direction we got was put everything in the broad categories you think you're going to spend them in. And then for each project over $30,000, we have to obviously go through the procurement process, and get bids, and then DESI they have their own, sort of bid sign-off sheet that they want us to submit. So we're going to have to go back to them every time we want to actually execute something before we draw down the funds, make sure they have the documentation they need, they have the justification they need. So my sense is of this grant, unlike some of the others where we might amend, every grant we amend, 1 or 2, maybe 3 times over the life of the grant, especially the federal ones that last for years. This one, I'm guessing it's going to be 20, 25 times going back to them, fine tuning this until we get down to 0.
Without becoming a pain in the butt. So how do we as a committee, and I'm asking this in the committee, how do we as a committee help you? I guess, when we look at ESSER 2 now, we see one line, we see the $5 million. And I know we've got some plans on spending some of that money. How do we track, if this is what we agree to, and granted, this is draft and it's gonna change, right? Is there something that you guys will be doing to bring back to the committee to say, hey, we thought it was gonna be $4 million for HVAC, but guess what?
Of course.
5.2.
Yeah, we have a more detailed view, for each, you get the grant summary report. We have detailed reports for each grant that we can run, and I think for some of these big ones, it makes sense to maybe include those in some of the packets.
So the business meeting, when we do the finances and the grants, we can add this grant in particular to that, so that there can be an update on some months it's not going to, I can't imagine nothing's going to really happen here the first month or 2. But we can add that to our business meeting packet so that we see that. So, because right now we have ESSER 2 is completely encumbered in staff, right? So we've encumbered all of the $5 million in ESSER 2 over the next 2 years with the program assistants, the accelerated teachers, additional BBEs, right? Not the classroom teacher staff, but the additional staff we wanted to get in there for support coming back from COVID. So we do have that plan to use those funds, which we went through for the budget. So, and again, there'll be some amendments there because some of those positions we haven't filled or hired. So there'll be amendments to ESSER 2 as well. But we really, ESSER 2 right now is really focused on that staffing plan over the next 2 years to make sure that we have those support staffs that we need.
Yeah, the way to think about it is ESSER 1 was really that emergency response. What was all the stuff we needed just to run school? ESSER 2 is all our staff for the short and medium term that's going to let us, catch kids up. And then ESSER 3 is the larger infrastructure, real future-looking projects.
Oh, sorry, Member McLeod.
No, that's okay. I just thought of the question. So you were just speaking of the fact that there's positions that haven't been able to be filled. Of course, everyone's in that situation.
Yes.
What is the flexibility with doing amendments and moving that money away from staffing? Does it have to be for staffing? Can it be to fill some of the technology needs to, I'm trying to think how can we?
Yeah, we never lose, I'm sorry to cut you off, member. We never lose the original flexibility in the grant parameters. So, whatever the original categories of spending could have been for us, we can always request an amendment to move money out of staffing categories and into supplies or into technology or into contracts. As long as it's under the original program rules, DESI will approve it. And really, they're kind of just a pass-through on this one. It's not a state grant, so they don't have much authority to say no as long as we're within the federal boundaries. So it's often like that transaction of amending these is, a couple days, not weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, we have consensus to move forward with the plan to DESI? All right, good job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Let's move on into finance and operations. The expenditure report, does the committee have any questions on the expenditure report? Member McLeod, good for you.
Well, thank you. So I noticed many, I shouldn't say many. There were several contracted services lines in which very little or none of the contracted services have been used yet. On page 17, page 19, that's other expenses. on page 20, I'm just wondering, obviously I don't know what those services are for and why those lines haven't started to be dipped into more than they have been.
Can you, on page 17, can you point one out? I might be able to.
On page 17, 3 up from the top, it's a total of $30,000. None of it has been used yet. So, what is that money allocated for? And what's the timeline for using it?
I can tell you that one specific one is for non-public transportation. Part of DESE rules is that if we provide transportation for Methuen Public Schools, we also have to provide it for other schools in Methuen, specifically St. Monica's. So that will be used as we get billed for those services. Yeah, it will be used. We try to encumber everything up front, but not everything.
No, that makes sense. Do you want me to go to another one that I noticed?
No, actually, I can sit down with you and go through. I might know some of them off the top of my head,
Sure
but
thing.
I may have to go and look to see.
Absolutely. And just what I'm wondering about is information that you just said. How much of it are we waiting to be billed for services that have been rendered but not yet been reimbursed?
Excellent question.
I do want to point out that you guys approved the clerical contract tonight. So at the next meeting, I'll be coming to you to transfer that amount of money out of contracted services into clerical. It's already been opined.
Any additional questions on the expenditure reports?
I have one more, please.
Go ahead.
On page 27, professional salaries. It's a fairly large adjustment and no reimbursement at the top of the page.
What am I looking at, page 27?
Yeah, on page 27, the
Yep.
adjustments is almost $140,000.
Yep.
What are those salaries?
Well, you're looking at a revolving account. This is the Courier, this is the Adult Learning Center. And that 139 was the amount of money that was carried over at the beginning of the school year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Two for two. Good job. Member Pesh?
Thanks. Not a direct question about this, but when I see ice rink, it just makes me think that we might be, we're opening it up, I'm assuming, sometime in the near future, right? When does it usually open?
It's open. It's
Oh,
been
it's open
open since
now?
August. You guys approved it opening the normal time, so it's open.
Wow. Okay. So how
It's in
are
high
we?
use.
Oh, that's great. No. Because are we still doing extra cleanings and stuff like that? Or has that completely, we don't have to do that anymore? No?
We're not doing any additional cleaning on top of what our regular cleaning protocols are for the gym. I mean, for the ice rink.
No, that's fine, because I know some of that was extra expense last time, and I was always concerned about us, operating at a loss. So I just wanted to make sure that we are not and will not be doing that. So, good, all right.
So though I hate to bring it up here, a recurring theme is, that I keep getting hit with is that teachers have to buy their own supplies. That we're not providing, are we providing supplies for teachers or not?
Yes.
There's a recurring social theme, I didn't see it today, but it's a recurring theme that they have to go out and buy their own supplies.
Do you want to answer that one?
We are purchasing supplies for teachers.
Okay. And there's a process that they can all draw down from it, I would assume?
There's a process in each school, so the building principals order general supplies for the classroom. Mr. Noble's working with the other staff in the buildings for any curricular resources and materials that they may need, so.
Okay.
We will supply them with what they ask for.
Anything else on expenditures? Revolving funds report? Any questions on the revolving funds report? You think this is easy? All right. I'm seeing none, so we're gonna move on to student activity accounts. Any questions on the student activity accounts?
Mayor, sorry, just going back to page 33, can you guys remind me what CF stands for?
Carry forward.
Carry forward, okay. I just wanted to make sure they weren't closed.
That's okay, that's all right. Student activity accounts? Okay, and that takes you to my favorite, the food service report. Okey-doke, and there were no bid awards. Thank you very much. All right, there were no appointments and other personnel matters, so business from the committee. Is there a residency subcommittee update?
No, Mayor, it's still early in the year, so as the students come back, I did have a second to speak with Mr. Lucier before this meeting, and we are going to have a residency subcommittee meeting before the meeting on November 8th. So we'll have an update then.
All right, is there any other business from the committee? I have one thing, so, and I apologize if this was the meeting I missed. So where are we on bus drivers? How are we doing with, there was a lot of hubris over buses and lateness of buses and number of drivers. And, you know, the bus company had promised, I forget, X number of drivers coming in October.
Yep,
right?
We've had one route that has been picked up by a new bus driver. We are still struggling. We have about 4 routes right now that are not covered, that are having to be people have to double back to do those routes. It's a daily struggle. I will say it's getting a little bit better,
Yeah.
but we do have periodic hiccups. All we need is one bus to go down, and that throws off the apple cart. So it has gotten better, but it is by far perfect.
Should we be reaching out to the state to see if we can get some of those National Guard drivers to come here?
I'm not sure that would help us. Our majority of our issues that I see are with the large buses, and they can't drive the large buses. It would give a little relief to some of the special ed, but there's a lot of restrictions that go with them that may help a little bit, but not too much. I believe what they were hoping to do is, in those communities that can use the National Guard, they were hoping to free up drivers to move to cover Methuen and Dracut and the other towns, and it was very little relief in that sense.
Okay.
I'm sure it was a lot more relief in those communities, but
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of bouncing.
It's similar to when you're as short-staffed and the teachers are out for that day and you don't have people to fill, the buses are experiencing the same thing. So, you know, they're trying to tell us when that happens, but they don't always know. So if you have people, they know they're gonna be out, and then you have people who call in sick, that's typically when you'll see that. And we don't necessarily get that information in enough time to even tell parents. That's the most frustrating, and I understand that. And when we do, I'm on the emails. Ian sends those out to the principals. They have access to every bus route in Infinite Campus to try to get messages out. But the timing of that can be really tricky when parents are already waiting at a bus stop or kids are already been dropped off at a bus stop. So I know the high school tweets, you know, more kids are on Twitter, so we try to tweet that out. But there are some days that definitely have been trickier than others, for sure. I think we're both fielding bus phone calls at this point, so.
I think that the situation in Lawrence has improved, quite frankly, because there's been an influx of National Guards people driving buses in Lawrence.
Okay. Any other business from the committee? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Member Pesh,
Second.
second by Member DiZoglio. I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiation with non-union personnel, superintendent of schools. We will not reconvene into open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Brian DiZoglio?
Yes.
Karen Halbauer?
Yes.
Jessica McLeod?
Yes.
Susan Nicholson?
Yes.
Jane Mazzani Pesh?
Yes.
And Mayor Neil Perry?
Yes. The meeting is adjourned at 7:50 PM.
Good night, Methuen.